Dashle Gonpo Dhondup for joining us in the Perspective series at the main office here in Dharamshala. So I'll just give a short introduction. Gonpo Dhondup is a prolific youth leader who just won a second term as president of the Tibetan Youth Congress Centrics based in Dharamshala, largest NGO in exile. Gombo received his bachelor's degree from Kirurimal College in Delhi University and master's in public policy from O.P. Jindal Global University. He is also the co-founder of Lhamo Welfare Group, a social service outfit in India. Thank you so much for doing this, Gombola, and congratulations on being elected again the president of Tibetan Youth Congress.
Thank you, Choekyi, for having me here, and thank you, Team Phayul, for this program.
Sure. So, since you have just been elected the president of the Tibetan TYC for the second term, it just goes on to prove that the grassroots have much faith in your leadership. What would you say that your previous term was a success? Do you think you were able to achieve what you had set out to do in the beginning?
So TYC as a structural organization, after the formation and since from 1974, we have our own drafted constitution, which clearly says that Central Executive Committee have a responsibility to host annual meeting every year and general body meeting every after 3 years. So the general body meeting of TYC is the apex decision-making body of organization, and the most importantly where we elect the Central Executive Committee. So I was elected as the president of TYC in year 2019 in the 17th Executive Committee of TYC. And after 3 years, now on the 18th JPM, I got re-elected. So which shows our members have showed their trust and they supported me and my team to re-elect it and serve Tibetan Youth Congress Central Executive Committee.
Right. So if you look at the past decade, TYC has seen a favorable shift in terms of public perception. There's been an acceptance from the Tibetan public, and a lot of tension seems to have failed, died down. The centrics and the chapter leaders were granted audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I think twice in the last few years. There's a renewed sense of harmony between TYC and the masses, the public. With all the goodwill, has TYC taken a backseat when it comes to unapologetically being an organization that advocates for independence? Is it still the case?
No, so if you look at the historical background of TYC, the very formation of organization in 1970 was blessed by His Holiness. So in 1974, Tibetan youth with the modern education, they organized a conference in Dharamshala. Right. So that was participated by 315 Tibetan youth. So that meeting was graced 3 times by His Holiness. And during the meeting, His Holiness clearly mentioned in the year 1970, all the Tibetan youth should have determination and will like a mountain for the just cause of Tibet. So with that advice and motivation, the organization was formed. So in the meanwhile, in the period, TYC get over and again blessings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So with the TYC active engagement in political activism, the other side, from the Chinese Communist government, label us as a terrorist organization. From time and again, they have framed a different name to defame Tibetan Youth Congress. And they're spreading a different hoax or misinformation in society to create a breach or a gap between Tibetan Youth Congress and the Tibetan masses. So since 2011, 12, 13, so organization, we face some problem. That too is an internal problem. So the Central Executive Committee at the period have tried their best to create awareness to the masses and to make the clarification that TYC stand for the complete independence is not to stand against His Holiness, is not to stand against the Central Tibet administration. Our stand for the complete independence, first thing we say that we have a moral right to struggle for the complete independence. And second one is historically, Tibet wasn't independent, it was illegal occupied by so-called People's Republic of China. So we say that we, as a historically, as a moral, TYC have stand for the complete independence. So there's no change in our objective for the restoration of complete independence of Tibet. Meanwhile, if you look at the 4 objectives of TYC, first one is working under the guidance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Right.
So there is no change in our objective. There is no change in the TYC struggle, in the resistance movement. But sometimes we face a problem to give a clear message or clarification to the general public. Yes.
Okay, so given the workings of the TYC, so we'll talk about the activities of TYC. So there are 88 regional chapters under your leadership, and even in places like Bhutan and places like Trichy in South India, TYC is credited to being the largest Tibetan NGO and has more resources than I think any other non-governmental project in exile. How successful have you been mobilizing the grassroots strength? For example, when have TYC chapters in Norway or Trichy undertook an event under your leadership?
Yes, so TYC, currently we have more than 88 chapters globally with the membership of 38,000.
Right.
So with the nature, the TYC itself, as you mentioned, is one of the largest and the oldest non-government organization in exiled Tibetan community. We have problem in some of our regional chapters. That not because of the organization default, it's because that there is no membership. The people, many of the, if you look at the college example, earlier in Hyderabad, there's lots of Tibetan students. Now this day there is a change of the movement of Tibetan students. So this Hyderabad and the Trichy and all the some places were not too active, but still we have our own regional setup there. So once there is a changes or if the Tibetan student movement or there's a new enrollment of the different university in these places, we can easily operate or we can easily revive those chapters. So even in case of Bhutan, the Bhutan chapter, they are not able to have, they couldn't have a very popular activism work, but they have a very proud feeling that they belong to TYC and they are the member of Tibetan Youth Congress.
So do you think migrational factors are there? Because since Tibetans are migrating from here to say to the West, do you think?
Yes.
But since West has TYC chapters, why do you think there's a lack of confidence? Why is there a lack of workings? As you said, there's a lack. You said there's no membership going on. What do you say about that?
The first fact is the migration issue. So in the many of places now the student migration is there. Earlier there's lots of students in Hyderabad and all. Now it's reducing. Even we can take the example of the Chandigarh. So during our college days, there's the Chandigarh is one of the active chapter of TYC. Right now the student quantity is drastically changed. Now this day we are facing the new executive in Chandigarh also. So this is the student movement or the migration. So that creates
which is hindering.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So my fourth question to you is: so if you look at TYC's events and programs, many of them are activities like Peace March, candlelight vigil, bike rally, and sporting tournaments. There seems to be a stagnation in the activities of the organization. Is there a lack of outlook when it comes to innovation and reinventing the brand of activism that TYC is currently operating to? Because it's a umbrella criticism to all the organizations, not just TYC. So how do you respond to that?
So yes, so if you look at the people's participation, so TYC is people's movement-based organization. Whatever the program or initiative that we take should be supported by the general masses. So there is a defection, it's a fact, that the people's participation in the Tibetan movement. Earlier, if you look at any kind of protests organized by TYC or any other NGO, there is a mass participation by the general public. Now these days that too is reduced. Yeah. So this is one of the major factor. And second is the Chinese intrusion. The Chinese, they want to create division in a society. They want to create disharmony in a TYC. So they are spreading a different misinformation across our community. That TYC stands for the complete independence against His Holiness the Dalai Lamas. And TYC stands for the complete independent hinder the CTA policy of middle way and all this. So we consider this as a misinformation with the proper motive spread by the other sides. So from the Chinese.
Right. Okay. Thank you. There's also views that TYC is gradually turning into social service, which you have been doing. The work social service has been going on forever. So contrary to what TYC is saying, that it will never compromise on its core objective, like including the objective of independence. Some say that the organization has softened its stance and methods. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't think so. If you look at the TYC with our 4 major objectives. So first objective is working under the guidance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Second one is promotion and preservation of unity and integrity among Tibetan people, irrespective of discrimination based on gender or region or religionism. So third one is preservation or promotion of Tibetan culture and identity. And the fourth one is struggle for the complete independence of Tibet, even at cost of one's own life. So with that 4 objective, we categorize the TYC campaign activity into under the different social political activism work. So first and the most important is the political campaign work.
Right.
So TYC with our own objective for the restoration of complete independence, we organize different campaign till date. If you just name the few, like hunger strike rally, political lobby, cycle rally, the different campaign. For that, we are creating awareness among the masses, and moreover, we are drawing the support for the just cause of Tibet. And second is the social services campaign. TYC, with the formation in 1970, we organize a different social service activity in any part of Tibetan community. Whenever there is a need in Tibetan society, TYC is among the first organization to render the social services campaign. So this social services is a part of TYC campaign from the very formation. So if you look at the recent time, if you say, so during my tenure, our tenure as the 17th Executive Committee from year 2019 till 2022, many of our physical political campaign were restricted because of the Chinese pandemic. There's a restriction, people's movement, so we were not allowed to carry a mass public gathering because of this health issue, the Chinese pandemic. So the meeting that we had in the JPM, so we clearly adopted a resolution that now the 18th Executive Committee will have more kind of political action. So with this Central Executive Committee, we have a responsibility to organize, mobilize, and also we have to draw the support of general masses. So hopefully there will be a more political event in the coming years, next 3 years.
Great. So my 6th question now is, the world in the context of the Tibetan movement has drastically changed in the last 2 decades, especially after the pandemic. China has become more powerful and may even overtake the US in the future as the strongest country in the world, both economically and militarily. Beijing has repeatedly called, as you mentioned, it has called TYC that as well, called the CTS separatist organization and rejected the middle way approach many times. So yet it is still the official stance of the exiled Tibetan government. Do you think we can still afford to continue on that path?
So the policy which is adopted by Central Tibet administration is an official policy. So whether to change that all, it depends on public's opinion, first thing. And second, the legislature, the elected member of parliament, they will decide. So we as a non-government organization, the Central Tibet administration or the exile government that we have is a democratic institution. Under democratic institution, there can be a different opinion, policy, or especially like NGO like us, we have our own full right to work as our own objective. So this is, I don't think there's a conflict in that matter. So the decision to whether to change the middle way policy, that will be decided by the general public, especially the lawmakers. So with the changing international issue, moreover the ongoing critical situation inside Tibet. So we have to focus more on what kind of harsh policy is introducing by the so-called People's Republic of China inside Tibet. How our Tibet brothers and sisters are still suffering. The situation inside is still worsening. So now we have to cope with all this issue. And for the international, if you look at the international perspective, so what we consider after this pandemic, earlier they were very popular, especially many of the Western European countries. They consider China as an economic benefit making countries. Now with this pandemic, they are more aware of what kind of government this communist government is. And second is their expansionist policy in the Tibet border, from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. They're creating a security issue to the India, and their continuous intrusion in the Taiwan, and their policies in Hong Kong. With this all scenario, with this all cases, now the people are becoming more aware of the communist government. And if you look at the Belt and Road Initiative, now it's turning into a complete failure. So this is the accountability which is made by all the world global citizens.
And so we have to look inside Tibet in order to shift our workings here in exile.
Yes, we have to look to the inside Tibet, and we have to look at the international scenario at the same time.
Right.
Yes.
So my last question to you, Gombola, before we wrap up this interview, is now that you are now charged to lead TYC for another term.
Yes.
So what are your core objectives, and will there be any significant changes in your leadership and how you want to take this organization forward? During our 18th JPM, there is an amendment of TYC constitution. So TYC in the constitution during the 12th JPM in 2004, which clearly directed that the TYC Central Executive Committee executive members should be a 10th, and there must be a full-time office worker in Dharamshala. Okay.
So in 2019, there's 16 TYC executive member. They have bring a resolution which mentioned the TYC Central Executive Committee member, working committee member, is reduced to 7. Now this, during the 18th JPM, we amend this charter of TYC. Now the strength of the Central Executive Committee, working committee member, is reduced to 7th. Okay. Now is the amendment of our constitution. So yes, among the 7 of my colleagues, 4 were my former colleague. So now we are working together. So my own target is in 2019, I framed a different, we as a team, we framed different campaign work, but we were not able to achieve or implement all those things. And now during our coming 3 years, now we are going to implement all those activity. And moreover, we have a moral responsibility. TYC Central Executive Committee have to check all the resolution adopted in our general body and the annual meeting. Yes, with this all the aim, so we are committed, and I myself have full committed to work for the betterment of TYC and for the cause at large.
Great. So thanks so much for giving us your time.
Thank you.